I'm a 34-year-old woman living in Bristol, England, and I've always tried to be a good neighbour. I work from home, which means I spend a lot of time in my garden looking after my 2 kids and keeping things tidy. I've always believed in kindness, but I've also learned that sometimes people can be incredibly cruel, especially when they think they're in the right. I'm not the type to start fights, but when someone is being unfair, I can't just sit back and let it happen. One day, while I was working from home, I noticed someone taking photos of our cars. I was a bit confused because I didn't think we had anything to hide. I went outside to see who it was and found a man with a clipboard and a camera. He said he had been called about our cars, and I immediately knew something was wrong. He mentioned the borrowed car, and I knew in that moment that it had to be her. She's the only person who knew we had borrowed the car and that we didn't own it. I was pretty sure she was the one behind this. He said our cars were abandoned, including the one parked in the street. I found that confusing because I knew all but one of our cars were used every day. The one that wasn't, I had planned to fix and use again. I told him that, but he just kept insisting that they were all abandoned and that he would have to come back to check on the borrowed car again. After he left, my son, who is one of the pettiest people I've ever met, put the sticker on the tag. It was in the glove box, and I guess he didn't think anyone would notice. I called the inspector back to let him know about the sticker and to ask if there were any other steps we needed to take. He said he would come back in 7 days and that we couldn't leave the car parked in the same area. We had to make sure it was moved every day because it was registered to a different address and he would take photos. I told him that wouldn't be a problem. My son drives it every day and I knew it would be easy to move it around. The next day I found a website that showed all the open violations of a specific address. I looked up the complaint she had made and it was completely false. I decided to look up her address too. The same day the inspector had been at my house, there were 2 complaints opened for her address. The one on ours had been made the day before. I saw him walk over to her house when he left from mine, and he was there for quite a while. I guess he was giving her an update. I also noticed that while he was there, he saw her overgrown, trash-filled backyard. That's what one of the complaints was about. I wasn't sure what the second complaint was for, but I knew she had bragged about her renovation and construction projects to everyone. When I looked up the zoning violation, it didn't show any details or comments. I searched further and found that her address had no recent permits in the past 7 years. I couldn't believe it. She had been living in a glass house, and now she was the one being exposed. I started to feel a sense of justice taking over. I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I decided to take action, not just to protect my own interests, but to make sure she faced the consequences of her actions. I started gathering evidence, making sure that every detail was recorded. I knew that if I could prove she was the one behind the complaints, I could turn the tables on her. I spent days preparing, making sure that every piece of evidence was clear and convincing. I even made sure that the borrowed car was moved every day, just as the inspector had said. I knew that if I could show that she had been lying about her own property, then she wouldn't have the upper hand anymore. I wasn't going to let her win. The day the inspector came back, I was ready. I had everything I needed to prove that she had been the one behind the complaints. I made sure that the evidence was clear and that every detail was accounted for. I knew that if I could show that she had lied, then she wouldn't be able to continue her attacks on me and my family. In the end, it wasn't just about getting back at her. It was about making sure that she faced the consequences of her actions. I knew that if I could do that, then I would have a sense of closure. I wasn't going to let her get away with it, and I wasn't going to let her ruin my life any longer. I had made my choice, and I was going to see it through.